They try to drown me. I can swim upstream so profoundly. I can stay calm in a dire situation. I'm at it every day, no time for a vacation. And I smell blood in the water. Everything I do, yeah, I do it for my daughters. Now I'm gonna shut your lips. It's time for a brand new episode of what? We talking jit, say what? We talking jit, say what? We talking jit, say what? We talking jit, said it's time for a brand new episode of Talking Jit.
Oh, you ready?
Yeah, ready whenever you are, buddy.
Okay, now I'm ready.
Now
How's it going, dude?
I'm ready.
How's
It's
it
going
going?
good, man. How's it going with you? What'd you do today?
The good old 9 to 5er, and then straight home to be a dad, and now I'm getting in a little podcasting conversation. Life is good.
Nice, dude. You
Yes, sir.
train it all today?
Yeah, actually, I hit noon class. I was gonna ask you how jiu-jitsu is going for you.
It's been good. Unfortunately, I've been only really able to train on the weekends. But honestly, I kind of like the weekend classes. It's nice being able to train during the day. And the training partner is always really good on the weekends. So getting it in where I can, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a weird schedule because of this job, and I know I've probably bitched about it enough on this podcast, but I keep it real and I live live, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
they it's a little bit different. I mean, because I kind of keep two jobs, so my schedule is always busy. So I try to squeeze in training during the day, and usually it's I get there right when the what do we call it? The move of the day is ending. And I usually show up right around the time where we either do specific training or live training.
Typical purple belt. Skips the stretching, skips the move of the day, just comes in for the training.
Dude, you know what? And what's funny about that is that was never supposed to be me.
You said you were never going to be that purple belt.
Dude, and it's not out of laziness. Trust me, I'm fighting my ass off to get there and fighting my ass off.
Oh, I know it's crazy. You can even get in 2 or 3 times a week with the kids as young as they are. You know what I mean?
I'm getting 4 or 5.
Are you really? Good for you, man.
Yes, plus squeezing in the gym sessions. But like I was talking to Brittany about, dude, it's a little bit different now because and this is for people out there doing the same. This is one of the hurdles of staying so committed to the craft for so long. This is why it's so important to make it a habit to go, because there's little certain life things that could just easily knock you out of the game, you know. And most people on the mats, let's say you're probably a good example, especially as a white belt, and the people who you can tell decide to stick around. And I'm just talking the people usually make it about 6 months, and it's in them. What is all their main goal?
100%.
The black
it's
belt.
Funny
right?
too. Everyone comes in wanting to be a black belt.
Yeah. Yes, and it's but you don't realize how easy it is to get knocked off that game because you're fresh, you're in the mood, it's new to you. You know what I mean? It is truly a long process to get that black belt, and this is one of the things I think is important, is keeping it a habit to go.
It's funny that you say you never thought you were going to be the purple belt who comes in 20 minutes into class, because I never thought I was going to be the guy who would take 2 or 3 years to get past white belt. But it's been taking my time, and it's funny, you kind of paint all these pictures in your head of what your jiu-jitsu journey is going to be like, but life hits you. There's tons of reasons that you can't get in the gym, but it takes a lot of tenacity to stay in there 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week and make sure that you're constantly improving.
Yes, and that's the thing too, is also want to be not just someone who shows up, but I'm one of the people who wants to perform well. I want to be on the top dog list, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't ever want to be an easy role for anybody.
I want to be a top draft pick. Yes.
Do you feel more pressure to be a hard role or to be that top dog as a purple belt, that you can't get caught slipping ever because of your rank?
Yeah, kind of yes and no. I think there's a lot of ego for white belt and blue belt,
Mhm.
more so like, and I think I explained this on one of my episodes, talking about the purple belt blues, because like a
Mhm.
lot of purple belts fall out too. But I think purple belt's the lazy belt. I think it's like the belt where people are like, all right, I kind of, I've become advanced in the craft, and it's kind of old to them. People abuse old habits. Like it's not fresh. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong, and it's always fun to go, but it's not like that fresh, new, exciting, like brand new relationship anymore. So
Yeah.
like, I think purple belt's where you get lazy. You guys are gonna have to listen to that episode to get all the details. Shameless plug,
You're
but
not dating the game anymore. You're married to it. You got
yeah, you're married to the game now. But um, I think there's a lot more ego as like white belts. A lot of white belts are spastic. They want to prove
Mhm.
themselves. They want to show that like, they got that pressure. Like, I'm rolling with someone who's advanced, but I want to show them I'm good. I want to be a beast. So they end up being like kind of spazzy to compensate for the technique difference.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of ego in that. And then I think there's a lot of ego when you get to blue belt, because you don't want to get tapped by white belts.
Not
Like
at
you're
all.
you're okay with purple belts like kind of beating you, even though you want to like fight hard for them. But like blue belts tend to have like a lot of respect for purple belts, but like they don't want to lose to the lower belts, because they're like on the steps to becoming more of an advanced um practitioner. You know what I mean?
So maybe you already covered this in your purple belt blues, but do you feel like it's harder to improve now that you've been doing this for as long as you have, and you've been going against the same training partners for a long time, because there's only so many guys who make it to blue belt, or so many guys who make it to purple, brown, or black, and you've probably been training with those guys for years now. Do you feel like it's harder to improve as a purple belt?
No, I feel like it's easier. I,
Mm,
I, I literally feel like I hit a point to where I learned how to learn.
mm,
Like, and like, yeah, it's harder to find competition on the mat.
mm-hmm.
Our gym is kind of stacked, like at least for the time being. Like, we've got a decent amount of browns, and I mean, dude, we get a handful of black belts in our gym daily,
Yeah.
like that are like, competitors, like, but so competition wise, and like, and I guess like whatchamacallit, like competitive roles, yes, it's a little bit harder, but I think it's easier because you learn how to learn. And like I kind of feel like I hit this point, and I've talked to a lot of people who agree as well. You hit this point to where like you can kind of like dissect the game. Like you can
Yeah.
kind of you can kind of recognize where you're weak, and you can kind of recognize the basic principles of what you're trying to do, and then how to put in like small details to make it better.
So I don't know if you agree with this, but I heard John Danaher talking about like a lot of his top competitors spend 80% of their time training and practicing techniques on blue belts so that they can like constantly get better at techniques and work on offense. Do you see a lot of utility in your own training when you go against like blue belts or white belts, where you get to, really focus and lock down the techniques that you're good at?
Um, yes and no. I mean, I've got a lot of people at about my level and my rank that
Mm-hmm.
are good training partners, because I get like that chess match with them. You know what I mean? Like I get
Yeah.
like it's kind of like a live action chess match. I'm physically challenging myself, but I'm also mentally trying to stay one step above. And you get the respect from those people. Like if I fuck up or do the wrong detail, they're gonna start being one step ahead of me, and then I'm playing catch up.
Yeah.
Where
100%.
and then sometimes, it's sometimes there are techniques that like I'm like not really good at, or that I'm not really sure about, or I haven't really tried that often. And those techniques, yeah, like I'll work on like a white belt or a blue belt, and see where it goes. But I'm in this like mindset lately, going kind of back to the competitive thing. I'm in this mindset lately where I'm kind of like trying to go against people's strengths. Like, so if we got a guy like Seth, who's like a really good top side control, no, sorry, really good top like half guard, I'll pull half guard on him, because he's got that shoulder pressure. He can like box you in. He can kind of crunch you up. He's a strong dude. He's bigger. I'll like come in with some ideas for half guard and work it on him. And he's a blue, almost purple, but like, so I kind of like, I agree. And like, also, I don't know if I can sit here and say like John Danaher's wrong in anything,
Yeah, really.
but I'm just like speaking from my personal experience and where I'm at so far. What about
And
for you? What's it like from your end?
I'd say I see the utility of it for like working on my A game. Like there's definitely certain things that I feel myself gravitate towards, but I've only been practicing for maybe like a little over a year and a half. So being able to like, okay, I really like to do this type of arm bar where maybe I can get to the move on a blue belt, but I have a hard time finishing it, where I can go against a guy who's newer, who doesn't have the defense, and I can finish it a few times in a roll. And I can, but even with that being said, I do have to take a mental notice to go like, okay, if I'm going to finish this on somebody who maybe I've been training longer, then let's make sure that I'm doing the technique correctly and make sure that I'm trying to execute it perfectly. That way, when I, get into that same position with somebody who's better, I have a better chance of finishing it. Cause I think if you train too much with people who you've
They
been
kick
training
your
longer
ass.
than, yeah, or if you just train with too many people that are lower in skill than you can create bad habits and get to
Exactly.
moves the wrong way and finish them sloppily. And then all of a sudden you go up against, for you, like a black belt that's never going to let you finish it in that fashion if you don't have perfect technique. So I think it's good for training your A game, but I also think there's, utility in, okay, maybe I'll go against somebody who's not as skilled or hasn't been training as long as I am, but who's heavier. And that changes the way that I have to train with them, because now strength isn't an option because I'm going to get out manpowered. So I have to be even more technical, or going against someone who's similar size or smaller, who's way more technical. Okay, now how do I just use technique and try and keep up with this person? Where I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of utility both ways.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. And I don't know if this is all like just developing the pieces of the puzzle or if everyone's different. It's it all makes sense to me though. Like it all completely makes sense to me. Cause like you you hit the nail on the head with the bad habits. Like if you're training with someone and kind of going lackadaisical, that's why if I know I wanted to like do a tournament, I kind of turn it up. Like even
Mm,
if I'm going against like a blue belt or something, like in my head it goes from like, okay, I'm training, like I'm in the lab type of like mindset, like the mindset where you're like, okay, I'm gonna try some things out today and test some shit out, compared to like the mindset of like, okay, I'm gonna go for a tap, or I'm gonna go for submissions, or I'm gonna go for control, or even just like I'm not gonna give up points today. Like kind of like change the objective in my head as I'm rolling.
yeah,
But like as far as the bad habits, like that's all because you let like a white belt get your back so you can work back escapes. And
100%.
you might sit there forever letting the dude on your back and kind of laughing and trying some shit out and playing with his hands and shit. But then you go against like a brown or a good brown or a good like black belt, they get your back, and usually by the time you realize they got your back, they're attacking your neck already. So like
Yeah.
you don't have that time gap, you don't have that technique. Like it's so I think it's a little, I think it's good to do both. Like I think it's good to have some things you're working on for the right people, and it's good to have some shit that you're trying to sharpen, and
And I think one of the hardest things for me, and I'm sure you can relate, training as long as you have, is when you get somebody who doesn't want to like fight in the same capacity as you do. Like they're really gentle, or they don't want to push back. Like I feel like I'd rather train against somebody who maybe has lower technique but is really in there to fight, versus somebody who's more technical but is almost taking the round off, or is going slow, or isn't using any of that tenacity. It's one reason I really like Zach will bring in some of the MMA fighters from MGM, and those guys don't train a lot of jujitsu, but they come in and they're like, you're not going to tap me. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to try and tap people. And those are some of my favorite training partners, because it's like the 10 minutes with them is harder sometimes than the guy who's been training for 5 years.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of MMA guys, especially with like my background, and I tend to like whenever we have MMA guys that are in our gym for just jujitsu, or they do a little bit of the Thai and stuff. You're absolutely right. Like a lot of those guys have that like competitive mindset when you roll with them, to where like yeah, they kind of they push you, and they're not like a pushover.
So, since you've trained MMA, I've never trained any striking or any MMA, just jujitsu. What do you think makes the people who train MMA so tenacious or such hard fighters as opposed to maybe like your daily jujitsu practitioner?
You got to be fucking psycho.
I swear, all the guys I train with that are MMA fighters or even just like Muay Thai strikers that come from, I think it's MJM. Um, they're they're psychos. They like they have like
the the
something
game
right with them
is
and
so
something wrong
much
with them.
different. It's so much of a different game, and it's like you got to be prepared for so much that there's almost like a defensive route you have to take. Like you don't want to go into an MMA fight and learn that you have like a severe hole in your game, because
Yeah,
like
I bet.
it costs so much to figure that out. You know what I mean? Like not only time, effort, training, and money for training and shit, but like you don't want to go in there and learn that like you have a really hard time holding your left hand up. I learned that the hard way.
And get
Like
knocked out by a right hook.
yeah, like I learned that the hard way. Like I dropped my left a lot, and it sucks having that exposed over and over again. You're trying to live action figure it out, and then on top of that, like having to fix it and be paranoid about it. And there's just like a lot to it. Like you have to there's it's dedication, it's pain, it's real want. Like you can't we used to say like you can't show up in the gym and fake it. That sport you can't. You can get the fucking like egos, right? But
Yeah.
those guys who come off the street, I'm a good street fighter and undefeated in the streets and whatever all them fucking guys come off like okay, yeah, buddy, but here's the thing, like you're gonna have to show up, like just like jiu-jitsu. Like I never thought I would be like settling on jiu-jitsu, bro. I mean, not to say like I won't like train anything else, because I love all of it. Martial arts is great just mentally, and it's just a great challenge, and I love it. But like they come in the like gym, and the price you pay to get better and learn and get in shape and get conditioned is not for like the weak-minded person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not
Like
at all.
you
It'll
can't go
eat you out.
you can't go in there
Pause.
and fart around. If you're in a legit gym, you can't really go in there and fart around and be like okay, yeah, like even the lightest kick done properly is gonna fucking hurt. It hurts.
100%. I had Justin kick my legs a couple times just light, and I'm like, ooh, I would not want to feel 40%, 50, 60, 100% of that.
Right? Like if you pick up the angle right and drop it at the right proper angle, dude, just the weight of like your shin hurts. like feels like a Charlie horse from hell. So like you gotta be like somewhat psycho to do it. And just the grind, bro. Like you like for instance, you're a good striker and you go to MMA. You're gonna eventually come across someone that you're afraid of going to the ground with. And just to prepare for that, you got to have cage work, which is like some of the hardest fucking training, I think. Having someone smashing you against a cage and learning how to get out, or, hold your own, or sprawl with the cage in the way and shit, dude, it's super tough. Or like you're gonna have to learn and take down defense. It's just crazy. It's like
I was
it's
so surprised. I went back in my hometown. There's a MMA gym that's kind of coming up. They just had like a 16-year-old win one of the world championships for youth MMA. They've
oh,
got a
cool.
couple amateur guys who are doing really well. And I went there and trained jujitsu maybe like 4 months in. And I thought I was like, oh, I think I'm a pretty okay white belt. I'm gonna go in here and show these guys what I have, and going in there the way that they never start on the ground. You're always starting on your feet. You have to work for every position. I did wall work for the first time. That was, I couldn't believe how tired I was from doing 10 minutes of wall work as opposed to like doing 8-10 minute rounds at an open mat. It was crazy to me just how hard those guys work at every facet of their game.
Dude, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like they gotta be like somewhat psycho, bro. You don't really survive in that sport at even like a competitive level without having some sort of like shtick. You know what I mean?
So for the guys who have that mindset, who walk into jujitsu gyms, do you think there's a good way that you can train with that tenacity, with that fighting spirit, and still, I don't want to say make friends because it's not really about making friends, but still be a good training partner with people who maybe don't have that, who are more hobbyist, who, want to come and learn, but don't have the same will to fight for 10 minutes?
I mean, how do you feel about training with me? Because that used to be me. Like
I,
I came from that background and that kind of style and that kind of grind and
Well, I'd say like with me and you, it's a little different because we fool around a lot and I ask you a lot of questions. I'm like with you, I'll be like, oh, that ankle lock was really tight. How did you get that? One where I feel it a lot is when I train with like Christopher, because
dude,
me
chill,
and
chill. Don't be putting my game out there, dude.
yeah, I'll be like, how did you grab that toe hold when I had you in a toe
Why
hold?
are your ankle locks so shitty, Kevin? Why is
you'd never hear that from me, dude. You'd be tugging on my ankle. But when I go with a guy like
for all the people in
Christian,
my division, I just want you guys to know that he has really bad ankles.
I tape him up when I come to class.
Yeah, we call him glass foot. So
honestly, though, I don't like anyone touching my feet. I train too much in the gi for people to be touching my
not
feet.
the foot fetish type over here. I've tried,
But there's definitely guys. I think Christian's like a good example for me where I like that speed. I like going hard. I like rolling through. I like starting a roll on one corner of the mat and ending up on the other corner of the mat. But not everyone does, and it can be, hard for the hobbyists to want to roll with guys like that. But you can't get good at this sport in a competitive sense if you don't roll like that, right?
this is where it's tough because you like I think I mean, yeah, you got to have some sort of like dog in you. You know what I mean? You got to have like some sort of like grind and grit in order to compete. I think it's competition's tough, man. Mentally, huge, and physically, you got to be ready. I just like sometimes people blow their wads early trying to be like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that. I came in with like I'm a tough SOB. I think that even without knowing jujitsu, I can hang with the best of them. Not only did I get humbled very quickly, but I also got hurt a few times doing it because, I'm like, I don't want to tap to that. I want to be tough. I want to fight out of every submission, even if it's late stage. And it humbled me quickly because, I had I had one bad ankle sprain and then one light one, and then I popped my elbow rolling. And then it kind of made me go back and go, okay, let me train more with a technique mindset. And then now that I'm feeling 100% healthy, trying to get back into like, okay, how do I push people to fight for 10, 12, however long the rounds are, and get the fight in there? Because, jujitsu without that fighting mentality, I feel like is more art than martial. You know what I mean?
Are you trying to get so are you trying to get a fight as in like hard work? Are you trying to get in the fight to learn technique or both?
More for hard work and the fact that the game changes when somebody's
Putting pressure on you?
fighting back. You know what I mean? It's different when we're both agreeing to just like, it's almost like the difference between a full flow roll and like a competitive match. And I want my rounds to feel a little bit more like a competitive match than a flow roll.
Okay. So think about this, just food for thought. Think if Chris, crazy Peruvian guy who has no chill, he's a savage. He's just
absolute savage.
Yeah, he's a nightmare. He's not his roles are not for everybody. They're
No, for real. They make black belts quit.
Yeah, no shit. Well, yeah. Um, um, think about being able to fight him and keep up and put in that that work, right?
Mhm.
Or think about being able to handle him and slow him down. What would you prefer?
I'd much rather be able to prefer to handle him, slow him down, and keep my head on straight and be able to think
Give your
through everything.
give yourself time to think, right?
Yeah, and be
So,
able to go through it calmly and be able to masterfully do it without having to, because sometimes it just turns into like I got to do whatever I can to get up. I don't care about this escape or this sweep or that sweep. Just don't let this guy advance.
so rather than like trying to play his game, which is going to be coming at you like a madman,
Mhm.
like you're going to learn how to handle him with less energy and learn more technique to slow it down and give yourself time to think. And rather than being reactive, you're being like kind of proactive.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that.
So like, you know, and it does feel good getting hard rolls in. Like, don't get me wrong, I like them every now and then. You get in like, but I also like the chess battles too.
Yeah, and I think ideally if you can have someone where you can find a happy medium of that, where you're in similar shape, you both want to go hard and get a good roll in, you're similar level, so it is still a chess match. Those to me are my favorite.
And like, there's a lot to gain from it too. Like pushing that hard. I mean, you're gonna get conditioned.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna like learn like good reaction time. There's a lot to learn from it and gain from it, but the most you're going to gain from it is if you're able to actually slow down and think about where your problems are at to solve them.
Yeah, and if you're spazzing out too much or you're trying to rely too much on strength or athleticism, you do end up kind of in this conundrum of maybe I won a battle in the match or maybe I got a submission, but how did I get there? Can I repeat it? Can I repeat it against a better opponent?
Right.
So
So
another thing I heard is I heard this guy talking. He said that when you're a white belt, you'll get in really good condition because you have to fight so hard all the time just to survive. But as you get better and better in jujitsu, your conditioning gets worse because you don't, your technique gets so much better that you don't have to expend so much energy. Do you feel that to be true in your training?
yeah, I mean, I feel like again, like I said, the classes are pretty stacked and stuff, but like I just remember being at a blue belt level, bro, and I just remember like every round was a fight for my life. Like every round was like full intentions on beating every single thing that was coming at me. And I'm talking from, and what's also is like you're lower on the totem pole. So I'm talking about from black belt all the way down to purples. Like I'm trying to like win. Like every round was like trying to win. You know what I mean? Like giving no inches. And I just remember, bro, like the headaches I would get, the dehydration. Like some days,
Panting like a
like,
dog on the wall.
well, when you're in it, it's kind of hard and you're kind of oblivious. But like when you kind of sit back, you're like, God, I've been feeling like shit for a while now. Kind of realize like, dude, I never knew how to properly hydrate my body. I'm drinking
Mm.
so much water. I'm not realizing like I need sodium, I need magnesium, potassium. Like I need like actual like to replenish electrolytes and let my body absorb the water and use it rather than just flushing my body out of vitamins. You know what I mean? Like then and it's just like you hit like this. I feel like I agree. Like I think that a lot of times I tell people like I think the best thing you can do is breathe. Like just
Mm.
slow down and breathe your way through it and think and find where your problems are that you can fix. And the faster you do that, I feel like the more experience you will gain.
And a lot of times too with that breathing and patience, I feel like a lot of times it's like when you're freaking out in your head, maybe somebody's got like an underhook and head control and mount and you're freaking out. You expend so much energy doing that where if you just relax and kind of flow with it, sometimes the guy on top will start to give up. They'll be like, wow, this guy's not tapping. He's not giving me the reaction that I need to advance forward. all of a sudden they have to let back a little bit to try and get a reaction. And now you created some space because you were patient, you were able to breathe, and you were able to, work back into your game and get an inch back.
Yeah. I mean, hold on. Oh, Billy. My dog is trying to say hi.
Just trying to come up in your lap.
Yeah, she's trying to like sniff my ear or something. But yeah, yeah, and there's just a lot to it, man. I mean, like every to each his own. Like some people stay that way. You got the guys in the gym who get good at one thing, and it seems like they practice that for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got guys in the gym who are like well rounded, and you guys got the guys in the gym who just kind of like, they got their belt just by how many times they showed up, and then you got the guys in the gym who are like, make you afraid. Make you afraid. They make you fucking fear gravity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know a couple guys come to mind.
That's my slogan for the MMA guys is like, I'll make your ass fear gravity, bro. you ain't gonna want to go down to the floor, right? That's kind of like my goal, which is funny because I originally like started out with boxing. Like I was like the biggest Tyson Roy Jones fan ever, and then I end up being a grappler. Like I end up with, what I mean, like committing to grappling for so long.
What about grappling made you fall in love with it to the point where it became the main martial art that you train?
Well, so, all right, this is kind of funny. So you met Donald, right? Remember my boy Donald who just moved back here?
Yeah.
I went to high school with him. He was a beast. He was a beast wrestler. Like he was a good wrestler, if you couldn't tell. And in high school, I was all into boxing. Like I just watched, dude. I would go home and watch boxing videos all day. Roy Jones Jr. highlights, Tommy Hearns, like you name them. Like I watched tons of matches. Like I was obsessed with boxing. Like I went out and sought out a boxing gym. Me and this kid that I went to school with, like one day we were like, oh, fuck it. Let's go to this boxing gym and try it out, see what it's about. And we went to like 3 or 4 of them, found one with a pretty cool vibe, hung out there for a little bit. And then like all my friends, because of Donald, like was at the same bus stop as me and him and I just became cool. They were all fucking wrestlers, bro. And they would all talk so much shit to me. Like, oh, wrestling's a shit. What are you going to do? 90% of fights go to the ground. Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, I heard it all.
Wrestlers can get punched in the face. Wrestlers can, like, we ain't afraid to take a punch to grab your leg. And, wrestlers are fucking grinders. They're fucking tough-ass dudes, right? They put 100%. Themselves through fucking hell. So, but I'm a determined, stubborn ass, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I ain't going to let y'all fucking get away with this shit talking, especially when y'all trying to 5-on-1 me right now. So it was just like this constant back and forth my friends and I. And then finally I had a couple friends who are in like same weight class and I'm like, hey man, like let's run it, let's try it out, like let's go out front, let's go out front and see where this goes. And I don't know, I try to stay humble and let my actions speak for me, but like the dude couldn't keep me down. Even if he got me down, I sprung back up. I was just squirrely and scrambly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just, and a couple of my friends, I started like getting a couple of my friends to kind of say like, dude, you should join the wrestling team. You should join the wrestling team. And I'm like, nah, I don't think so. Fuck that. Like I'm a senior. Where's it going to go? Like I'm going to get like maybe a year in. Like I'm probably not going to do it. And then the coach said, hey, we need a guy at this weight class, which is like my weight. And we need him to finish out the year. And they're all like, I got my friend. He'll come stop by. I had full dreads at this point, bro. Like, I don't know if you knew this, but I've had dreads for a good portion of my life. Like,
yeah, you got to send me a picture of that, dog. That's got to be the podcast photo, dog.
No regrets, bro. I loved them. Everyone judged the shit out of them, and I didn't give a shit. But what happened was the coach wanted me to shave my dreads, which I've had for like 5 years at this point. And I finally grew them out long and I kept really good care of them. He's like, you're gonna have to shave that shit in order to be on the team. I said, no, I'll wear what's the thing you wear on your head? Like a cap?
Like the swim cap type deal?
Yeah. I was like, no, I'll wear a swim cap. He's like, swim caps aren't on my fucking team, or we're not wearing swim caps on my fucking team. And I was like, then I'm off the team. And this is after like maybe a week of training. Like I'm talking about like I was puking during training and stuff like that.
Yeah, been there.
And like, dude, it was really funny because it started like this little like it just kept the rivalry like the vendetta of like fuck grappling, fuck wrestling, fuck all that shit. Boxing is where it's at. Well, Donald graduates eventually. Him and I are like inseparable, right? He graduates eventually, and I'm like, now what are you gonna do? And we were just sitting around one day, and we're like, let's try to find an MMA gym. So we called like 3 or 4 of them, and this is back before it was huge. Like this is like I don't know, like when Chuck Liddell was still like the king. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
When,
before
like,
MMA was even really what it is now.
this is like when Chuck Liddell was becoming like Conor McGregor. Like everyone wanted to go see Chuck Liddell's knockouts and shit. He was like running it, and we found this gym and we went to it, bro. And I'm sitting here thinking on the way to the gym, like Donald's gonna finally find out, like like standing up, like we're probably gonna be like, I'm sitting here thinking because like again, Chuck Liddell being like the main guy, like a lot like MMA at that point was going through the knockout phase where it was like a lot of stand up. Like there were wrestlers, but there was like more strikers and vicious strikers than there were wrestlers. And
Yeah.
we show up to the gym, and of course, the fucking coach is like a 8-year wrestler and like a 13-year black belt under Pavel Popovich. So it's like basically a grappling based gym. and,
You thought you were gonna be able to show your hands off.
well, I mean, I just thought I was gonna get to finally like work some hands and become like a good striker, and ended up doing this fucking wrestling shit and like 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 one of the main drills we would do is like King of the Hill. So you're in the middle and 2 guys wrestle and the winner stays in the middle.
Ooh.
Yeah, and then you just go down the line, and like Donald would hold it down a lot of times, and it was just like so much work and such a grind that it started like breaking me down, but I didn't want to let it beat me. Like I wanted to like kind of prove my point ish. But then over time, just like adding jiu-jitsu and the chess match and how fun it was to like learn how much technique goes into every little move and like how much work it really is. It kind of like it just be fun to play like chess like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's what got me so, addicted to it and so it's still what makes me continue to train is that. And for me, it's something I really like about it is that it's hard enough that at times it makes me want to quit, and that I have to sit there and go to myself as like, well, what, am I going to regret this if I quit? Why would I quit? Am I quitting because it's hard, or am I quitting for a good reason? No, I would just quit because it's hard. And then that part of it I really like too, is that there's something about it that's so hard, so tough, so much, there's a lot of pain in training.
What's
That
the
it
hardest
pushed
part
me.
to you?
The hardest part to me is probably just that at our gym is that it's like a gauntlet. Like you're not gonna like I'm a white belt, so I sit at the end of the wall and I never get to choose my training partners, right? Because the top of the line chooses first, and by the time they get to me, I'm getting chose by someone. So like there's never really a roll off. It's not like I am at the front of the line and it's like, oh, I'll go choose the new white belt and take a rest round. I'm like always having to go with blue belts, always having to go with purple belts. And it's really humbling as well. I mean, it's you go through an open mat and you do 6, 7, 8, 10-minute rounds where you are on bottom the whole time, getting grinded on. People are working their best moves against you. It's enough to make a weak man quit for sure.
Yeah, like you can't fake it. You know what I mean? Like that's what I like about it is just like it weeds out those freaking dweebs for the most part. You still get some douchebags and stuff, but in my head, it's like you can't fake it, you know.
And there's an interesting like dynamic too about when it's probably for all martial arts, I'm sure, but you could not like somebody, at first. Maybe you make like a hairline judgment about someone you walk in, like, I don't really like the way this guy looks. He didn't say hi to me or whatever. I don't really like this guy. And then you roll with them and you can instantly gain a level of respect. And that's something I really like about the sport too, is that you get to know people on a totally different level when you're fighting that hard and training that hard with them day in and day out.
professor told me one time, like he can tell a lot about a person's personality by how they roll. And I was like, how? Like, it makes sense, but like how? And he like explained like a good handful of people, and I think I even like handed him a couple of these like names. And he's like, well, they roll like this, right? And this and that, like, and you know, and he's like calling these people out by how they roll, and I'm like, damn, he's like spot on. And that's, I was like, man, I want to get to that level where it's like I roll with his ass, and I'm like, okay, yeah, he owes money somewhere.
He works a good job. It doesn't need this.
This motherfucker's running from some shit. Okay. This guy owes taxes for 4 years. Maybe he's just like interviewing them. You can't even tell.
You can tell a lot about somebody's courage by the way that they roll too. You can kind of tell, you know, quickly, and you know, people grow from this, which is cool too. You get to see people grow, but you can kind of tell, you know, who's a coward, who would be somebody who's going to jump in front of, you know, a quote unquote bullet. You can usually tell that in the first like 5 or 10 minutes of going at it with somebody, which is really cool. You don't really see that side or get to know people like that so quickly in any other social realm.
Our gym has a little bit of a reputation of being like kind of tough too. Like,
oh, I mean, I've only cross trained at 1 or 2 other gyms, but I can tell you there's like, you know, every other gym I've been to has a huge emphasis on safety and go light, and you know, try, you know, if you get in any bad submissions, tap. Whereas like our gym is like on day 1 you get thrown in with the sharks.
What's crazy is it used to be worse, bro.
That's what Zach always tells me.
It used to be like Shark Tank, survival of the fittest, like if you can't make it, you don't belong here type of attitude. It's actually like leaned out a lot, but still, like from people I know at other gyms who have been to other gyms, they say our gym is pretty tough. And I'm like sitting here like, what, man? I didn't have to go through this fucking shit.
You think it's tough now? Usually, yeah, you should have been through it.
Like, I'm like, man, I'm about to go drop in some classes elsewhere. I mean, I've dropped in at a few gyms and shit, like, but like, and I've always had a blast, but I don't know. I just never really noticed, I guess. But hey, you've been interviewing me, bro. We're gonna have to switch this up pretty soon.
Yeah, go ahead.
Might have to switch. What were you gonna say?
Well, I think it's cool that even though, you know, I think just jiu-jitsu culture in general is switching less from that like warrior, you either have to prove that you belong here or get out, into more of a space is created for everyone. But
more of like, you know, who has the better steroid dealer?
who's got the most juice? But there's enough black belts at our gym that professor has taught and molded that there still is a little bit of that spirit in the gym, and probably more so than a lot of the places you might train elsewhere.
Yeah, man. And you know, when I have a gym, bro, I'm gonna kind of emphasize on teaching people, like to teach people, because I think if I can make you better, it's gonna make me better. Like, I think that's important, is like not only just training like warriors, but like I want to hand out advice to whoever needs advice, because I want that person to get better, which will in turns make another person better, which will in turns make more people better, which will in turns come back full circle, and I have better A, training partners, and B, gym environment, and C, like just like harder work, like not necessarily harder working people, but like, you know, like I think that is going to be like kind of the motto of my gym.
It's one thing I really like about training with Zach Allen is he always says that he's like, I need to train you to be a good training partner for me.
Yeah.
You know, if I withhold information, or I don't show you my best techniques or the right way to finish things, then like it's hurting myself, because at the end of the day, you're the, you know, my students are the people that I train with. I need them to be as good as possible.
I guess him and I have a lot of similarities.
Yeah, I've heard both of you guys say that, and I think it's true. And it's the reason that I like, you know, I don't know a ton, but if I ever have anything that I can pass down to someone who's brand new, I try to as well, because, you know, the better that they get, the more it's going to force me to be the best that I can be.
Yes, 100%. And like, think about if I just like beat your ass every day and hope you get better from it. Like,
yeah, exactly. Okay. Or like if I was like, hey, how did you finish that? It's like, I don't have time for that, or like, show up to more classes and you'll figure it out, or, that's what training for 5 years gets you type of mentality.
Like, say hypothetically, I'm good at ankle locks, right? Like if I was actually hypothetically knew how to do an ankle lock, and I taught you how to defend the ankle locks because in this scenario I'm good at them.
Mhm.
A lot of people won't do that because they got it. You know what I mean? They have like an alibi. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, they got an edge on you, and they don't want to give up the edge.
But if I teach you, then I either get to learn the next step on how to be better at it, or I get to learn a new route or something else to do.
Yeah, or like all of a sudden you teach me one way to escape and I get creative and, tweak it a little bit, and you weren't ready for it. And you go, oh, well, now I want to try this control when I'm controlling the foot. And all of a sudden you get a new control, and now you have 2 or 3 ways to attack the same submission because you taught somebody how to escape, and now they're evolving on what you taught them.
Yes. And like, that's like I don't mind like teaching somebody how to beat me, or where I didn't want them to go, or what I didn't want them to do. I really don't mind, because like then it's on me to figure out how to beat that. And that's going to force me, whether I like it or not, it's going to force me to learn something and get better as well.
And at the end of the day, like if you are hit it, like say every day you can hit the dummy sweep on me, or you hit the balloon sweep on me every time we roll. If you never take the initiative to teach me how to not get in that position, then you're never going to get better when we roll, because you're always going to be able to use the same exact move on me. I'm always going to fall for the same tricks, and then you start falling into repetitive habits that don't allow you to get better faster.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's back to the whole, like what you said earlier, like building bad habits.
Yeah. And all of a sudden now you're trying to hit that,
You
dummy
how
sweep
many
on somebody
times
much
I've
better.
revisited back attacks, just attacking from the back?
Oh, dude, it's one of
the
my favorite
simplest thing,
places
right?
to learn from.
You get the back and you go for the choke. You know how many times I've asked, what do I do here? How do I do this? How do I beat this? You know how many times I've been like bow and arrows, like being able to bow and arrow, like every single time on lock when I get the back, to like now it's being defended. Now people's hands are getting in the way. Now I'm getting like, now they're blocking my leg from like scooting away and getting it, to being like, hey, like, how do I beat this? How do I beat that? Why am I getting stuck here? What am I doing wrong? What's an alternative way to get it? And it's like, dude, it's literally one move, and just revisit it so many times to get better. Because maybe, and not saying just me, but maybe this person is getting caught more and more and more, and I'm catching him like 4 or 5 times. Maybe he's getting sick of it, and he asked, why am I getting caught? And he figures out how to block something, and then it's like, fuck, that's working. Now I got to figure out how to get better. And then like it's one of those things you don't notice, but then a brand new white belt comes in, or somebody from another gym that's not used to it, and you're like, dude, I got it easy now.
And yeah, I could get this same move 10 times in a row if I wanted to, because I had such a hard time developing the technique against people. And for me, that's like one of the greatest things about rolling with the same people over and over again, is as soon as you think that you got something down packed on somebody, they're learning a way to defend it. And now all of a sudden, like, I can't go to my A game with this person anymore. Now I got to go try. Maybe I'm a really good half guard player, and now I got to try and do a De La Riva guard, or I want to try and go close guard because they've seen my half guard so many times that they know how to fish for the underhook or lock my head down or flatten me out, that it's time for me to try new things and throw a different game at them.
Yeah, 100%, man. And who's interviewing who here, man? Let's switch this up a little bit.
This is our podcast now.
I was just thinking too, like speaking of that, that's probably what I'll transition into. Oh shit. That's probably what I'll transition into. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, man, I need like someone like that I can like constantly talk about like current affairs. like like whatever's going on in the world or current affairs or current news with, like whether it's like MMA or jiu-jitsu or martial art news or like, you know, what's going on in the world. But I was like, damn, it's kind of funny you just said this is our podcast now, because like maybe I find somebody who's like down to just like fucking bullshit about what's going on. But
I definitely think you should, dude. I think there's so many big content creators in the space of just like following no-gi grappling or UFC fights, or like, you know what, I haven't seen a lot of people. I haven't seen somebody who does really good commentary on ONE FC in the United States, because that's based in Singapore.
hey, chill.
And
I'm kind of like thinking about.
don't give them all the good stuff, dude.
That's kind of what I was talking to you about with this whole mic and streaming shit. I'm like, maybe. I mean,
But
I can't lie. I've seen somebody on Twitch streaming like one FC or one, what was it? One championship, and he like kind of had himself down at the corner, and he was like, he had like people in his chat talking. He's sitting there watching them. There's people in the chat hanging out with him. I'm like, that's fucking dope. Like, I'll talk to strangers and like share ideas and commentate a little bit, you know.
Well, I think it's important. Like, one of the biggest learning tools in jujitsu for me has been watching and listening to people analyze different submission grappling matches or different MMA fights. And it's cool to sit in there and have somebody like be able to break it down for you, or go like, you know, I love watching fights with Zach. I watch fights with Zach pretty much every UFC card. And it's cool to be like, oh, he could have got out of that if he did this. Hey, on Sunday, remind me and I'll show you how you get out of this position.
I like working with him too because of like my background, and like obviously like he's like a beast on the ground, and dude's like built perfect for jiu-jitsu. Like, not only does he have like 60 pounds on me, but he's like a technical wizard, and he's a jerk. But like,
and he's got just the right amount of dickhead to be fucking super good at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, but I like it because I can like, him and I can find common ground watching it, because there's like things where he's like, why is the guy doing this? I'm like, oh, well, it's because if he does this, it gives up that. And he's like, oh, that makes sense. Because of like, I have like the striking and like ground and pound awareness and stuff like that. You know, he's thinking like strictly grappling, and I'm like telling him like what, you know, what it could possibly lead to. And it's kind of, I like doing it as well, because him and I like go back and forth, like, and then like you said, you show up to the gym and it's like, here, this is what I was thinking. Well, here, this is how you get up from your ass on the cage, and this is why you don't want to get up on the cage like this. And you know, it's kind of, it does make it fun. I'd love to build that kind of community, and I think I'm going to.
And at the end of the day, like, there's just I mean, everybody, especially in today's day and age where I feel like people are spending more and more time at their homes alone on their phone, like, people are in such a search for community. So many people love martial arts. And I think if you can build the two together, where it's like, hey, we're all going to meet up and watch the fights here. And then you can go into cool ways to monetize it, like doing a Patreon where it's like, hey, if you guys donate, we'll do an analysis. Nuts. Yeah, I'll send you a picture of my nuts.
Oh, that's OnlyFans.
But I think if you can build a community, you can definitely appeal to people who love martial arts.
It'd be funny to make like OnlyFans and be like, you know, subscribe and I'll send you a picture of me mounting some dude. And then like it's like me and mount. Like,
if I didn't have such jacked up feet, I always said I would just shave my fucking feet, paint my toes, and just try and make a bunch of money on OnlyFans. Make like Irene Kronk.
That's so awesome. From you create content too. Now that we're warmed up, we can start the podcast. So this is Tomi Nells, as aka Tomi Nells. But no, like for real, you've got I like your music as well. It's coincidental, but I just interviewed Tias or Meta, and I love his music. But you got really good music as well, and I don't say it to bullshit. And
I appreciate that, dude.
I don't say it because you're paying me. I'm saying it 100% genuine. Not
this is how I get privates.
There's nothing I'm getting out of this other than money. But no, for real. So you're a content creator and people should check you out. But like, how do you? One of the challenges is like getting yourself out there and getting it shared and getting it like moving. And I noticed like you get a lot of plays and stuff, and I know you've told me some like tips and tricks. Is this something that you've been working on for a long time?
Yeah, definitely. I've been putting out music for it's like 7 years now. And at a certain point, you kind of get to the point where like, is this worth the time if nobody hears it? Like, I do think that there's a lot of utility in creating and making art for yourself. It's very therapeutic. But at the end of the day, I make music and I want people to hear it and I want it to have an effect on their life. So I had to go, we live in a digital world. What are some digital marketing ways that I can share my music with people to amplify my signal? And one that's been great for me is doing playlisting and reaching out to people who curate playlists on Spotify or SoundCloud or even YouTube and saying like, hey, how can I submit my song to this and take my small audience and expand it into your audience? And that's been one of my main ways of growing into new listeners and trying to get new fans. And it's been working moderately well so far for me, but also always looking for ways that I can take a small flame and pour a bunch of gas on it.
Right. Um so Tias and I were talking, and he made a good point, and it kind of put a light bulb moment for me. Is And you gotta listen to that one and tell me what you think, especially from being an artist and artistic creative.
Is it out yet?
I'm dropping it Friday.
Okay, but yeah, let me know when you put it out.
I think you'll like it. But him and I were talking about and it's so true. And there's another guy I'm gonna get on here. I'm gonna try at least. He doesn't know it yet, but he will be on here. I'm very persuasive, but
I like the way you roll. Take the money I'm paying you and give it to him.
Like, want to know how I know you're doing a podcast? Because I'm stronger than you. I'm like holding him down, and we got one phone in between us on the floor. I'm holding him in mount for an hour, talking to him.
Nah, I didn't like that answer, dog.
Just let me go. I'm like, not until you answer my questions. But no, it's all about building a community. Like, we're in kind of like the age where it's past the playing the fucking algorithms. It's past like Facebook ads almost. It's like, it's to the point where it's like almost like building a community. And like, and what there's like pros and cons about it. And I'll use my buddy as an example. He sells Pokemon cards, right? He's in the Pokemon game. The dude is like, he's killing it. Like he's doing a lot in sales. Like I'll let him decide if he's going to disclose it or not. I don't think he gives a shit. He says it on his stream all the time, but he streams on Whatnot. People buy Pokemon cards off him, either like singles or either like they buy packs or vintage packs, and he either opens them live and sends them to them, or he sends them the pack sealed. He goes out and sources all this shit. He's at like every single like collecticon there is. Like, but dude, I'm in his Discord. I'm doing like a lot of custom work for him to just take up to shows and try to sell. And
good for you.
Yeah, and like it's amazing. But like one thing I realized about him is he's like, one huge benefit, he's genuine. Like he's genuinely like likes it, genuinely enjoys it, and genuinely like likes meeting the people, and which I think is very important. And two, like, he's got a Discord, he's got like all the socials, but he's like on there. He responds, he talks to people, knows them personally. They drop in the stream, they say, "What's up, bro?" He's got like 28,000 followers on Whatnot.
Oh, wow. Good for him.
Yeah, bro. Like he starts a show and there's instantly 150 people in that bitch.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, dude. Like having a community is huge because there's a difference between getting views or getting listens or getting, plays on a reel or whatever kind of content or creative works that you do, and getting somebody who likes your stuff enough that they want to support you. You know what I mean? Like a community full of people are going to be the people where it's like, if I printed vinyls and wanted to sell them, they're the people who would buy those and support me continuing to create art. Or if I did a merch drop, are going to continue to support you. There's a big difference between that and paying a Facebook ad to get 1,000 people to hear you, which is really cool and is also very important. You have to have a broad enough signal to get to people. But then what do you have that curates those people to continue to want to listen to you, to like you, to get into the story or get into the who's the hero of that story, as opposed to just liking the art.
Right. And it's crazy because, well, actually, first speaking about the merch drop, I just did the t-shirt drop. And
Plug.
shout out to everyone who bought a t-shirt, because that's awesome. And I appreciate you guys. And I love you guys back. But it was just cool. I'm like, oh, I might make t-shirts. So people walk around with like my podcast t-shirts. Like, I think it's cool. I was like, oh, let's see how it goes. And I was like surprised by how many people were down and ordered a shirt. And I'm like, oh, so this is how merch drops start going, you know, like kind of come up with something. Not like I'm gonna be able to sell a shirt every 2 days, but like,
well, maybe not yet, but all of a sudden, you know, it also goes to show that like there's an effect that this podcast is creating for people, right? Like there's people who love you and love what you're doing enough to go, hey, I want to support this further than just listening.
Right. And yeah, and it actually motivates me as well. It's very awesome.
And I think a lot of it too is I think so many people get so wrapped up in like, how do I promote myself? How do I make a community? And for most people, the first step, and you know, where I think you're getting better and better and better, is how do I just make something that's worthy of fans? How do I start by making something that's good enough? And how do I get through the trenches of sucking at it? Because like nobody gets good at podcasting, nobody gets good at making music, nobody gets good at jujitsu overnight. And I don't care what anyone says, like nobody's just blessed with those things. You have to work at them and enhance them and get better at your creative acts.
I constantly have this fear of running out of guests and topics and people, but here's another like angle I'm thinking, and I want to know how this compares to your music as well. Yeah. But like, because it's probably pretty similar, but like you know, so, and anyone listening, if this is on Spotify, there's like a little window down there that like it says like, what do you guys think? Like, I invite you to tell me, but like, I don't know what to put in the fucking titles, dude. Like, do people care more about like the title being like Tomi Nells, musician, you know, rapper, whatever, or you know, Mike McFarland, former Texans tight end, or do they care like Mike McFarland, resilient motherfucker, or
I think
Tomi
way that
Nells,
you
hot spitter?
I think there's a little bit of both, because I think there's, you know, people want to know who you're talking, especially if you're someone interesting. Like, say you had the guy from the Bare Knuckle FC. Like, people definitely want to know that this guy is a fighter.
I gotta tap that market too, bro. I gotta get you motherfuckers need to
before
commit
one
for
FC.
once.
Yeah,
you guys need to actually follow through and fucking talk to me. God damn, I'm calling you out.
I'll be there with you, but don't expect me to do anything about it. Those guys are more psycho than the MMA fighters by a long shot.
I know a lot of them, bro. They're fucking. It's funny because they're actually like really good people. A lot of them.
I'm sure they are. They got a screw. You got to have a screw loose to do that shit, though. I don't care what anyone says.
Right.
In the best way possible. If you're a bare knuckle FC fighter, I love you. Please be nice to me.
You think you want to fight like that until you take a couple knuckles to the face, and you're like, okay, like this isn't the same. This ain't the same game. You see UFC guys doing that. They're getting punched in the face, and like, God damn, this ain't for me.
Yeah, it's a totally different fight when you're cut up, both your hands are broken, and it's the fourth round.
You're starting you're starting to feel swelling everywhere. Like your whole body feels like just swelling. Ugh.
The adrenaline's over, so you're starting to feel everything that's happening to you.
But how's this? Yeah, and do you get like that with your music? Like, are you like, man, I need to feature somebody. I need a guest. Like, I need to collaborate to expand.
Not really. Like, I'm honestly the worst person to ask about it, because like the guys that I have collaborated with were always like roll their eyes at me and be like, I don't care what we call the song. I don't care what the artwork looks like. I don't care if we do a video or not. I just want to make a really great song. And I'm kind of singularly focused in that in my, you know, creativity. Whereas like I'll spend 99% of the time and energy making the song, and then 1% of the thought power goes into like, what am I going to call it? What should it look like? What should the artwork look like? And part of that is because do 99% of the creation myself. Like a lot of artists who rap or sing or whatever, it's very collaborative. They'll work with a producer and then they'll get the demo recorded and they'll send it to an engineer and then they'll get the mix of it and then they'll send it to a mastering engineer and they'll get the master of it and then they'll send the song to an artist who will make the artwork. And then they'll, use a third party to distribute it. Whereas like I do 90% of the production myself. I do all the engineering on my own music, the mix and mastering, do all the songwriting and recording myself. So for me, it's like by the time I put all that energy into making the song, I'm just so happy that I got to a finished work that I'm like, who cares what it's called? People, I have so many songs that I like that I don't even know the name of. There's so many podcasts that I've listened to and loved, and I didn't look at the name. I just like saw that there was a guest I was interested in, or go to a museum and I'm so in awe by this beautiful painting that I didn't even take time to look at who the artist was who painted it.
Right.
And that's kind of how I look at it, but that's also the way that I consume art. So like I always kind of look at it through the way, this is what I would care about if someone was making it for me, and I want to replicate that when I'm making it for other people.
You don't go through like the catchy thumbnail with like the half a sentence like name.
No, that's just never been me. I've always just been
Tomi Nells said what?
Yeah, really.
catchy thumbnail of me looking surprised.
White belt taps blue belt. How?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I can't believe he said this. Like
Craig Jones shows his asshole to who, or like whatever.
Oh Lord.
Sorry, Craig Jones,
the goat of trolling.
Be my friend. But no, it's something that I spend very little time thinking about. And maybe it shows, maybe it's to my own detriment, but at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of things you can get lost in the weeds over. And like, I've definitely been a victim to like overthinking things to the point where something doesn't come out. I'm like, oh, is this good? Is the title good? Are people going to like this? Is this going to catch attention? Is this, is this trending with the current musical trends? And what I've always found is like, if I stay true to myself and I create things that I like, and I create things that my friends that have known me for forever, that I have similar music tastes would like, then it's usually good enough. And that there's so many people in the world who like music that I only need like a couple thousand people to really love it for me to start supporting it as a career. I've always been of the mindset, like, I don't need a billion people to like what I do. I need like 1,000 or 10,000 people to love what I do. And how can I cater my art to be loved by 10,000 rather than liked by 1 million?
See, and I think that's also important because like it might be distracting to build this thing. Like you got to build it one day at a time anyway.
100% brick by brick.
Yeah. So it's like kind of like I don't really have much, like, not saying like this is, I enjoy it. I like doing this. I enjoy it. I think it's something that I could get good at. And I think it's something that like I could grow from, but I haven't even once thought about like, how much money can I make from this? How much can I monetize? How much money can I make off of it? I just do it because I like it. But
I think that's where you get better art and better like creative works. Is I think if you were in it and were like, I'm going to make a podcast to make money, the top 15 trending topics on YouTube right now are these top 15. I'm going to spend all my time working on keywords, and not that you should ignore that stuff. I mean, like from a marketing, because I do digital marketing as my 9 to 5. And from a marketing perspective, all that stuff is really important, is a really good way to grow faster, but it doesn't necessarily make for the best content. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important, is how good your content is.
I want content that can either inspire people or just like I want, I know everyone's probably got like a list like this, but I just want to be able to inspire people and people to like listen to people they can relate to. Like
100%.
I think everybody's interesting. I don't think you have to be a celebrity or like hit it big. I mean, I do think some of those people have interesting experiences to listen to and learn from. But like, I think like in the general angle I'm talking to people, I like it to be more of like a growing mindset, like to help, And
it's how do you want to affect people? Like, is it more important to you that people, when they think of you and your podcast, that it's so viewed and that so many people, other people like it? Or do you want to have the effect on people where it's like, wow, Kevin was talking about how hard it is to get in the gym 4 days a week while he's got kids. I got kids. And since I listened to him, I've been back in and I lost 30 pounds and now I don't have a heart problem, or, now my cholesterol is better or whatever. And having like a positive effect on people's life.
That's truly number one to me. And I could tell you, and I did another episode on here. You guys aren't. I'm not going to tell everything because you're going to have to listen to it. No, but I did do another.
Here's the trailer
talking about my depression and like when I went through deep anxiety and depression, and it lasted for years and years and years, dude. And I didn't even know I was in it, and that's what I was dealing with, which mind fucked me even more. I thought I was broken because it was like early-ish 20s, and also like around like I don't know, like 15, 16. But both of them time periods in your life is like when your life kind of cranks up. Like you go from like being stuck at home to driving, hanging out with friends, and then you go from being stuck in your hometown and school and work to like, you got friends in college you can go visit, like, you're all over the place. Everyone around me is having an absolute ball and loving their life, and I'm sitting here like constantly depressed and anxious and scared of everything. And I don't know why. I don't know why I feel like shit every day, and it makes me even more scared to feel like shit. It makes me even more scared to operate because like I don't know what's gonna truly bring me joy or happiness. It was just this whole fucking mess. And I remember telling myself during all that, if I could ever push through and change one person's direction or take one person out of this pit, like it's just worth it. Like it's worth fighting my way out if I could pull somebody else out.
And one thing I've been working on in my own art, and I'm really glad that you brought this up, and I think if I could give one piece of advice to any artist, is that you need to tap into vulnerability. Like I heard this guy say this and it stuck with me for years now, is like there is a lot more people today that are going to take out the trash than are going to drive a Lamborghini. So when you make music or you're communicating with people, don't be afraid to be real. If you're broke, talk about it. If you're sad, talk about it. If you're heartbroken, talk about it, because there's way more people that are going through that in a real sense than are hopping in a Lamborghini, are buying a new Rolex, are living at the upper echelon of society. And yeah, that stuff's cool, but there's not a lot of people who can relate to that.
Right. And like you said, man, like you gave a good thing, and it was kind of crossing my head as we're talking about it, but like people with kids and shit, like, like we had Emery, and it did get tougher to get to the gym. And it got to the point where I'd have to bring her sometimes, and I'd have to ask Brittany if she would go, or ask if she wants to go, or like, hey, this is kind of like our family time. I was a lot more free back then because I didn't have like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday eating up like my whole day and afternoon. You know what I mean? Actually, it's like a 8 to 5, but like, so I had like a lot more freedom because I had my own business. So I was calling my own schedule, which is like a goal of mine now. Again, that's why I bring up the 9 to 5 so much, because it's not a bad position at all, and that's why I'm still there. But it's definitely a goal for me to find something to where I have my freedom back, or get to the point to where I have a little bit more freedom back. Like even if I'm allowed to work at night, it's not even like being lazy and avoiding work. It's about like working my schedule. I can put in hours. I don't give a fuck. But just like when I like, some days you wake up feeling like shit and you're not productive, but you have to force it. You know what I mean?
Well, and I can totally relate. Like I have been working the same 9 to 5 for over 3 years now, and it was always meant to be a temporary thing. And I think a lot of people can relate to,
and they get sometimes stuck in the loop.
Well, and it can be comfortable. It's like, how do I take a leap of faith on X when I have like a steady salary? I've built in these life expenses that if I don't have this job, will I be able to afford it if I take a leap of faith on myself? And yeah, 9 to 5s are great. Like I would never tell somebody not to work a 9 to 5, but there's something really special that happens when you're working towards your purpose rather than working for somebody else's, and you're assisting. And that can be really great too if you're aligned with it. But life gets a lot better when you're doing things that are purposeful for yourself.
Right. And like just to tie up that one line I was saying is like it got tough to bring Emery to the gym, and all people at the gym are seeing is that like I'm not like showing up as often or as much or basically living there.
And you're starting
And
to get the
which
you
is
don't not training anymore
which is
shit
funny
talk.
because I've never really gone below like 4 or 5 classes a week. Like I've always stayed at that, like I made it work. But
Mhm.
it's just like it gives the illusion to people where they're like, "Where you been? What's going on?" And I'm like, a lot of you guys don't really know how tough it is to like show up when you have a 1-year-old, and like luckily Brittany is cool enough about it to like support it, But like people don't. But like you said, like I was kind of thinking that in my head when I was saying it. Like maybe somebody will hear that part and want, like they'll understand, like, damn, like okay, it is hard and it is okay that it's hard. Like I can still make it, or like I can still handle. You know what I mean? Like get something out of it. Like rather than turning it to an excuse. It's so easy to be like, oh man, I've got no sleep. I gotta go home. Gotta go deal with the kids. Like I can't put in an hour of work. You know what I mean?
And
But
those little things that you go above and beyond, maybe it's for yourself, maybe it's for your family, whatever the reason might be, also ultimately make you a better parent, because I don't think enough people focus or see the utility in, as a parent, seeing your kids or your kids seeing you go after things. It's one thing I've always really respected about my dad, even though my dad was like a workaholic when I was growing up. He went from a good job and decided to start his own company. So he went from like good income to like, when you start a company, you start from scratch and you got to get it off the ground to like no income. And I've always really looked up to the fact that no matter what was going on, he always grinded out what he was doing, and he had a big goal in mind, and he's still working at it. I mean, 15 years later, still running the same company, still trying to grow it. Um, and I think it's good for kids to see their parents not only making sacrifices for the kids, but also making sacrifices for themselves.
yes, and yeah, and that's a good way to look at it. Like kids will notice, like maybe not in the short run, but in the long run, I think kids will pick up on the hard work.
Yeah, and I
Like
get a lot of my work ethic from, seeing that in him, and, never seeing him make an excuse, seeing him go to work sick, seeing him go to work tired, seeing him work late 10 days in a row and putting in 80 hours in a week. And it made me go like, oh, maybe that's just normal. Maybe working really hard to achieve what you want to achieve isn't this thing that um, only special people do. Maybe everybody can do that. Maybe I can do it if I just put in the work. And, it helped me a lot in baseball. I was not the most talented athlete growing up, but I worked hard. Helped me in music. Like I didn't have any musical background. I didn't have any musical training. I was never a good singer. I taught myself everything I know, but just through tenacity and working at it every day and being determined through it, I've been able to create things I'm proud of.
So you don't think were you ever like afraid of your voice?
I hated it, dude. I sometimes I still do. But I also had to, let that go because I only have one voice. And if this ain't the one, then I'm not the artist. But you can only wallow in that so long before it either beats you and really you beat yourself, or you overcome it and you find ways to make it interesting, because everybody's got an interesting voice, because everyone's got their own voice and no one else has it. So how can you use it? It's a tool.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people won't do the podcast because they like don't want to hear their voice.
I
Like
know somebody who makes YouTube videos who won't uh record their own voiceovers because they said like, oh, if I hear my voice, I won't want to watch my videos. And
wow.
I get that, don't get me wrong. Like there's been times where I was like, God, I can't believe I'm about to put out a song and everyone's going to hear this. But over time, the only person who's ever made negative comments about my voice has been me. And like, how many times have I been in my own way? Whereas like I'm thinking of all these ways that I could be negatively received that were all in my head. And then, and then I'll get feedback where it's like people are like, you have such an interesting voice. Hey, you have such a unique voice. That's what I like about your music. You don't sound like anybody else. And sometimes I've read messages where, you know, people go off and give really nice compliments and say things like that. It's like almost brings tears to my eyes, because I'm like, God, I've been such a buffoon thinking that, you know, I could never have that effect on people, when the whole time I was just in my own way.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's cool though that you kind of were like, well, it's my problem, I'm gonna deal with it and I'll make it work. And you got it working, man. I mean, you've got kind of I don't even really know how to compare your music, which is probably one of the reasons why I like it so much.
And it's one thing I shoot for, is like, how do I bend genres? How do I use my tool bag to create something that nobody else is going to be able to do, and maybe someone else can do it. Yeah, 100%. And yeah, it just goes to show, like, no matter what you do in life, no matter if it's martial arts or what you do, you only got the tools that you got, and everybody's only got the tools that they were born with. So you're either going to make it work, or you're going to make excuses. You know, you either make shit happen or you let stuff happen to you. You know what I mean? There's only two ways that it's going to go. And that's what is so inspiring to me when I see, you know, I won't say this person's name, but, you know, a guy at the gym who's got really bad scoliosis. You know, 99.999% of the population that would have that birth defect would never be able to put in the training that it takes to get good at jiu-jitsu. They might be embarrassed. It might be too hard, but this person comes in all the time and works with what they got and is constantly getting better. And to me, that's an inspiration, because
that's the kind of shit that gets me, man. Like, so like going back to like the depression and like all that kind of stuff, like, of course you get in these dark places where you're like, okay, like, you know, like things pop up in your head, you know, like, of course you want like the quick stop, like, how do I get rid of this ASAP, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking of like, so many people would have a breaking point already. I bet so many people would have given up on life in general at this point. I bet so many people, and it started getting me really interested on like not like mental health, but also like people's breaking points. Like you said, we got him, that person you're talking about with the scoliosis, and like you said, most people won't show up to jiu-jitsu, but just the fact that guy shows up so much and tries so hard is a fucking testament in itself. Him walking in the door is much harder than most people's hard days. Just him walking in the door, let alone him like pushing through a class. We got like Pops. Pops is older. And the fact that that dude showed up till he's like a purple belt. He's still here. He's still training. And Pops, like, dude, it can't be easy for Pops to make it to the mat. Or like, you know, we've got like, damn, it's like, is Leo like pushing like almost 70?
It's gotta be.
I think he is. He doesn't look it, but like,
no, he's in great shape, but yeah.
Like, and like, you got to think like you said, like there's so many people in that position that won't or can't get themselves there. What's the difference? And that's like where my like obsession is kind of like, can you teach mental toughness? Are you born with it? Like, is it just something you deep down have to want? Like, what makes, I keep almost saying his name, what makes him walk in ready for jiu-jitsu, but makes like the 90% others say, nah, fuck that, I can't do that?
Or yeah, like why is the well-bodied guy who's athletic, who's got every reason to be in there and could, with just a little bit of tenacity, be excellent at this sport, give up faster than the person who's got every reason not to be in there?
That's the name of
the
your
guy
next
who's
album, is tenacity.
I've been using that word a lot. Sorry, viewers, if you don't like that.
No,
word,
it's cool, bro. It's like kind of like that's your word, bro. That's your
it's something I've been obsessed with lately, is tenacity.
Well, that's your job.
How do you be more tenacious?
That's like that could be your thing, like tenacious. I'm gonna use that in the title. But
tenacity with Tomi Nells. I like that.
Why does, like, I don't know, like,
or I saw this video the other day, dude, of this guy who was a veteran who got both of his arms. He's got like half of one arm, the other arm's completely blown off, doesn't have either of his legs. And the whole time that they're talking to this guy, he's just got this huge smile on his face, always talking about solutions. Never is like, oh, it sucks that I can hardly pick up a spoon to eat cereal. It's like, watch how I can figure out a way to do this. And I think when you switch your mindset from everything's a problem to how do I create solutions, you become much more powerful as an individual.
Yeah. And like, I got this buddy, Austin, love you to death, dude. He like, another good example. He was like, I mean, he's still a good looking dude, but like good looking, well bodied, strong, like in shape, like cut up dude. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Tall, handsome. Girls like, he's the type of dude you're hanging out with, and girls are just handing him their cell phones. And
They're walking
like,
right by you to him.
they're like, you're like, what the fuck, dude? Like, really? Like, what? I mean, like, I know he's a good looking dude, but how does he have this like fucking P magnet built in, right? Like, he got into an accident. He got a crotch rocket. He was actually coincidentally leaving the gym and just like lifting and stuff. But a lady came over 4 lanes to hit the exit and hit him on his bike, put him in a coma, woke up paralyzed. Dude, the dude woke up drugged up, paralyzed, and was like hitting on the nurses and shit. And like, I went and
Didn't miss
visited
a
him.
beat.
And I went and visited him, almost unrecognizable. He didn't have any teeth in his mouth, so it was like, you know, he was like kind of like whatever they do, like liquid dieting him, like IVing him.
Anakin after the lava.
Like, dude, yeah, like it was like he was like unrecognizable. It was like trippy going in there to visit him in the hospital. The dude like was like A1. This was a huge lesson to me. And this is what shows like your mind and your perception is everything. He could have easily been like, I lost my legs. I'll never be able to walk again. And gone down that path, right? He was happy to be alive and extremely excited and kept saying, I will walk again. I will walk again. So think about those two different paths just from him waking up. This is like, you know, the first day I met him, or not met him, but like saw him afterwards, right? How much different of a lifestyle do you think he would have been had he been like, poor me, this sucks, and sat there and thought about that all the time? Or how much different his life is being like, I still have all this to work with, right? And then this dude got to the point to where like he's riding his wheelchair around because coincidentally my dad works in wheelchairs. Like he's like high up in a company. They build wheelchairs and handicap accessible shit. So my dad and his girlfriend as well, high up in there, they're like, yo, we've got like a couple of nice, like, you know, extremely high end prototypes you can mess with. Let us know. The dude's like taking these like lightweight, hyper sturdy, like fucking wheelchairs, and he's going to the gym and doing pull-ups. He's throwing a rope around the pull-up bar and climbing up the rope and then grabbing the top of the bar and doing pull-ups while this chair is dangling from his ass that's strapped to him.
What
Like,
a savage.
That's what I'm saying, bro. He had the, like, he's like, a lot of people could roll and be like, I'm never going to go to the gym again. Why am I going to go lift weights?
Why would it matter?
Yeah, why am I going to go do that? And homeboy's like fucking skeeting around in the gym in a wheelchair. All these people probably feel like bitches. All these fucking normal people probably sitting there doing leg day are probably like, damn, like, I wouldn't do that. I can't do that. That's too much work. You know what I mean? And meanwhile, Austin's like, no, I'm just going to bring like a rope, and that'll get me that I can climb the rope to get to the top of the pull-up bar. And
see, and that's what I'm talking about. That guy wasn't looking at like, oh, I've got all these problems, I shouldn't work out. It's like, no, I'll figure out a way to do pull-ups. If I can't have legs, I'm gonna have a jacked upper body. You better believe it.
See, yeah, 100%, dude. And that is like, to me, like part of like my thing. Like, I don't think I'm not the most mentally tough person, but like those are the type of things that like I think like, okay, I've got kids. Do I want to be the guy that stopped showing up because he had kids? Because there's a lot of them. Ain't nothing wrong. There ain't nothing wrong with it.
No.
Do I want to be the guy who did that? Or do I want to be the guy who like showed up, never bitched about it, and kept making it happen?
I mean, it's one thing, like the first time I met Big Mike, I didn't know anything about his situation, and I don't know too much about it, so I won't talk on it. But you know, I roll with him at first, and I'm like, oh, this guy's big.
Another great episode you should check out. episode number 1. keep plugging episodes. Anyway,
but man, like, talk about another guy who had every reason to quit. And every time I see Big Mike, like, he puts a smile on everyone's face. He goes hard. He's always improving his physical condition, and he's got a great attitude. And like, every time I see him, I'm just like, God, how could I be more like that? And it doesn't have anything to do with his jiu-jitsu. Doesn't have anything to do with other than, you know, he didn't get the best deck of cards thrown at him, but he's finding a way to lay his aces down.
Fuck yeah, dude. He, just to put it for the people who haven't listened to that, and I don't even know if we covered it in that episode, from him being in a coma, his toes curled and like rigor mortis, so they got stiff and stuck. They had to re-break all of his toes. Like, I'm talking like he signed up for jiu-jitsu fresh out the freaking hospital, started rolling with curled toes, and then finally, after like a year or two of waiting to be good and cleared for another surgery, they put him in there and they re-break all of his toes and put metal wires, rods, through his toes to keep him straight, so they heal back straight. And he still shows up.
And not only does he show up, I mean, it's one thing to show up, but man, to show up and be a light for everybody in the gym, to be able to joke around and have a great time and make everybody else's day better. I mean, that guy's such an inspiration to me. I look up to him a lot.
That's the goal and the power that I want to create with like this platform or community. Like, I want people to be able to listen, whether it's like somebody who's successful in business or someone who's like successful on the mats or just in life or been through hard shit and figured it out. Like, that's like what I want, is to bring people on to like people can listen to and be like, okay, like, I can't be a bitch today. You know what I mean? Like, it's easy to fucking wake up and play Xbox all day and have your spare time and eat fucking donuts and shitty and not advance one aspect of your life other than your save game, right? It's so easy and it's cool and it feels great, right? But like,
yeah, you definitely get the dopamine.
Yeah, exactly. I want somebody like to be able to like hear from these people, because there's so many in our gym, just in our gym alone, not even like everyday other people. There's just so many in the gym that you like listen to and you're like, this guy goes through all this pain and all this shit and still has a good day. Like,
and I think if you can, you know, inspire people to go from why shouldn't I do this to why, you know, why I should do this or why I should follow my dreams, why I should take the next step. If you do that for one person, man, then you never wasted a second making this podcast.
See? Yeah. And that's what I think is great. Whether I make $0 or $1 million off of it, like, to me, it's just a cool way to share. Like, I just feel like there's so many cool stories just in the gym alone and just in people that I know and meet every day. I think that like it's worth sharing. Like, there's always, like I said, there's always the people who just want to play Apex all day. Not saying that like it's not saying it's not fun and it's not like, you know, doesn't have a time or a day or a week, but like I'm sure there's probably someone out there that's either struggling from a hard time or thinks they've been through a hard time or playing the victim and don't even know it. You know what I mean? And could learn that like just simply turning your mind one step at a time to like, you know, okay, like, dude, I used to not want to go train at all.
I've had those days.
I used to not want to go at all. I used to wake up in pain, tired, exhausted. I used to be worried that like if I showed up today, this guy's going to beat me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I'd leave on a good note and put in a good day where like I did good against people. And there'd be days where I woke up and I'm like, nah, today ain't it. Like, I don't want to go work out today. Like, what if this guy's there and he beats me? Or like, I'm going to have to go hard with this person. I don't feel like going hard right now. And like, when I thought like that, it was so much harder to get to class because I never regretted after class. I always like, you know what I mean? I never left.
You're always worried about going to the gym before you get to the gym. And then you always leave like, thank God I did that.
Yes. So I had to get to the point to where like I had to get myself to the parking lot. Because I know once I get to the parking lot, I ain't going to let myself bitch out and fucking leave the parking lot.
You don't want to be the guy who turned around.
What if they see my car? Or I'm already here. Why not go in? Or, you know what I mean?
Like, I've had those days where I get in the parking lot and I see who's there and I go, should I just turn around? Should I just go lift weights? I could go put in a week lift in the gym and nobody's going to know about it. And all I got to do is answer to myself. And I think, when you can get into a mindset of how do I get where I'm not letting myself down? Because it's easy to not want to let other people down when you're training, when you're a training partner and you're working for other people or you're working with other people. But how do you get to the point where it's like, I'm not going to let myself down?
Yeah. Like, yeah, exactly. And it's like, so I made my goal to make it to the parking lot.
Yeah, if you get to that parking lot, you're going to get in the gym.
Yes, exactly. But I'm not going to think about the gym. I'm just going to think about the parking lot. Like, and it like became like that hard, but that simple. Like, okay, quit worrying about the job. Like, I'm going to make sure I'm in the parking lot at noon today. Like, oh, I just got to go to the parking lot today at noon. And it's like my mind just would be like thinking like parking lot, Starbucks, parking spots. Like, but if I'm like, I got to go to the gym today, I got to get to the gym by noon. I'm like fucking sitting there thinking about like who's going to be there. Is there going to be anyone good? Like, is like, this guy going to get the better of me today? Is this guy going to whoop my ass? Do I really feel like going through this? Like, I start coming up with all that.
And at the end of the day, the thing that I had to realize with everything I do is the world's going to keep turning. If you don't, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to say boo-hoo. Nobody's going to say Isaiah didn't show up today. I can't believe Isaiah didn't show up. The world's going to keep turning, and the only person who loses out is you.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
like, I gotta live with,
Bro,
I didn't go.
Even tournaments, like you go to a tournament and lose. First of all, I've never seen anyone go to the tournament and lose and everyone in the gym be like, he fucking sucks. Second of
Never.
all, nobody remembers much past it. People only remember really in our gym, at least, like you're a competitor.
At least
Like,
you had the balls to go out and compete, because that's a whole different ball game.
there's a respect level that comes like there's like an escalation in respect just from showing up to a competition. Like just for showing up and going through a whole competition, there's an escalation in respect from people, from your peers, right? If you go to now, if you're like winning everything, yeah, of course, there's another escalation. Like if you're like coming home with gold medals all the time and shit, it's like, okay, yeah, he's a savage, he's a good competitor. But like, I don't know, like it's almost like making micro goals, I guess you could call it.
I have way more respect for the guy who went and lost 3 matches but signed up than the guy who buries everyone in the gym but for some is too afraid or is afraid that they'll get embarrassed in a competition to even go try it, because it's a whole different ball game. I mean, I've only done one competition, but the pace, the the way that your body exhausts when you're competing, the way that adrenaline fills through your body and exhausts you. I mean, it's a whole different ball game. And like we were talking about earlier, it's when you're competing, it's much more of a fight than when you're training.
Yeah. It's but again, like, simplify it. Like, okay, you think about competing, you're thinking about your match, you're thinking about losing, you're thinking about winning, you're thinking about like how many matches, how tired are you going to be, what techniques do you have to deal with, how are you going to go in there and deal with a complete stranger. But if you simply change your mindset to like, okay, I'm just going to get to the mat. Like I'm just going to my only goal is to figure out what mat I'm on and what time I got to be there. So then your brain's just thinking about getting to the edge of the mat. You're not going to back out, at least this is what has worked for me. Like kind of like how you walk up to the booth or the ref and he gives one of you guys the thing to put around your ankle or the green and yellow belt, and then you like wait for the ref to call you onto the mat. Just get to the edge of that mat. Don't even think about rolling. Just okay, I got to get to the edge of that mat, and I'm complete. Like I've made my goals.
And I remember my first competition, I did it like the worst way possible. I signed up with my nephew and I watched his competition. So I watched the whole kids competition, and there was another set of competitions before, and I had to weigh in the morning So I'm there for like 3 hours before I compete, and I'm seeing everybody come in that I'm like, oh, that guy's probably about my size. Oh, look at, he's got the ears. I bet he's been doing this for longer. Or, oh, that guy
He's
looks
got
like
tattoos.
he looks tough. Or this guy looks like he's a good wrestler. I've seen him warm up and, doing all these shooting drills. And I'm like, God, I don't know how to wrestle. And you can sit there and like wallow in all of that, and the nerves will get to you. But man, that feeling when you get off the mat, especially if you win a match, I mean, it's like, not only did you defeat the person in front of you, but you conquered yourself that day. And
100%. Yeah,
when you conquer yourself, man, you feel on cloud nine. You're like, nothing can stop me.
that's what I like more than the competition itself, at least jiu-jitsu wise, is like conquering that, like that rush, that fear and all of those things coming at you at once. Like just being able to perform with that is like cool to me.
Yeah,
Like,
when you get off of there and, win or lose, you get to go look at yourself in the mirror that night and you're like, hey, I did something that was hard for me today. I did something that I like could have easily backed out. I wanted to back out, but I didn't let myself. And if you start to do that often in life, no matter what, whether it be jujitsu or maybe you're super antisocial and it's just going out and meeting people, whatever you're doing, if you can go out there and do things that are uncomfortable, you'll get better at everything.
yeah, I agree. There's a lot of growth with discomfort.
Yeah, I think that's the only way you can really grow. When you spend too much time in your comfort zone, I think that's a lot of the reason why people get so depressed, is they never leave, the area that's super comfortable for them, and they never grow, and then they get down on themselves for it.
Yeah, I think that it's not a bad habit to try push your comfort zones a little bit in positive directions, at least.
Yeah, and you get to know yourself more. You get to know your limits more, and the more that you push those limits, the farther away they get.
With your music, like what's the next steps for you? What are you really pushing towards right now?
Well, right now I'm engineering the second half of an album for my friend. So I've been doing a lot of that, which is good because, it's one of I don't have any training in it. So the more that I get to do it, the better I get at it. So I'm working on his album, which is super great. He's a really dope artist. His name is Latre. Everyone should check him out. So I'm doing his album. And then after I'm done with this, hopefully we'll be like mid this time next month, I'll be done with it. I want to start writing my second album, my second solo album, which is cool because then you get to I get to really dive into it and just be like the music hermit that I am and spend like tens of hundreds of thousands of hours in my room writing and creating. And, it's a workload that I really, really enjoy, and a process that I really, really, really enjoy getting into.
Do you think you could really I could really hop on a song and you could really make it sound good?
Oh, dude,
Without
without a doubt. If you could rap on time, I could make it sound good.
Ah,
Yeah, if you got even an ounce of some rap skills in you, I could make you sound good. And that goes for anybody listening. You need somebody to make you sound good, I can make you sound good.
You guys hear that? You guys think I should try it out?
Hey, comment in the comments below. Don't give any feedback. Just say, hey, I want to hear Kevin get on a song.
Yeah, if I get at least one person who writes that, I'll do it.
Yeah, dude, I think, dude, we could get you sounding professional. And then, it'll be yours. Whatever you want to do with it is up to you. Maybe it's just something you want to have to listen to, or
what if I'm on a Tomi Nells album forever?
Hey, the chances of that are lower, but we might be able to get you on the album. I won't make any false promises to you, but hey, if we can get you sounding good, you never know. Hey, maybe an excerpt from this podcast will be like a skit on the album, talking about what your friend went through. You never know,
dude. Yeah, fucking take whatever you want. It's funny because your excerpts are all over. You're like the intro now. You got the intro song.
Man, I was so happy you let me do that. That's cool. I'm glad that I got to.
You fucking popped that out like a champ, bro. You're like, we left the gym. And you're like, oh yeah, I'll start putting something together today. And like an hour and a half later, you just send me like a sound clip, and I'm like, what?
It's funny. It's because I tried to work on it like twice before and I couldn't get inspired. And for some reason that day, it was just like one of those things where it was like, I didn't have to try. It just came out in like 30 minutes and it worked. And sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you got to sit there for hours and force yourself to make something cool. But
that writer's block is fucking tough, dude, sometimes.
Yeah. But one of the things I always say is like the best way to not get writer's block is to write every day. If you are really consistent in anything you do, if you throw up 100 shots, you're gonna make a few of them. So you got to just be at it all the time. The time I get writer's block or beat block when I'm producing is when I take time off. So part of my workflow, part of what I consider my work ethic is just every day I got to write something. Every day I got to create musically. And when I do that and I get in that groove, I feel like nothing can stop me. Yeah. But when I take time off, then all of a sudden I start overthinking it. I don't like the way this sounds. Is this even good? And that's where I get into those holes, is when I take the time off.
That's cool that you just kind of just keep it flowing.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to like creativity or artwork, they try and make it like, oh, this is something that has to come to me. This is something that can only be inspired by divine intervention. Where like I think of it as like, it's like going to the gym, or it's like getting better at basketball. It's like if you do it all the time, you're gonna get better at anything. So, for me, I know I can get better if I put in work every day. I decide to do that. I feel myself improving, and then you just leave the cards on the table.
All right, and it's getting kind of late, so one of the last things I was going to ask you, who do you got this weekend? We got Usman versus Islam Makhachev.
No, you got Usman versus Khamzat.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why did I say Islam Makhachev? Who?
He's fighting Volk.
Volk. Yeah, sorry, I switched it up. I got distracted. Yeah, you got Islam versus Volk. Who do you got?
Man, rematch. I think my like fighter IQ sense says that I think Islam is going to come out and fight a better fight than he did the first time, and he's going to be more successful, and I think he's going to win. But like the underdog story loving part of me really wants Volk to pull that one off.
I think Islam won the first fight personally.
I do too. I think it was a close fight.
A lot of people say Volk and they swear on it, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, and a lot of people need to get their fucking standards with fights like secured, because sometimes the fight is won. Like, for instance, what's his name? Aljamain Sterling beats Petr Yan because he backpacked him for 2 rounds, 3 rounds, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's pure dominance, and that's a win. He didn't tap him. What's his face? Goddamn, Petr Yan was punching Sterling in the face while he had his back while he's in a back triangle. You know what I mean? Punching him in the face, not getting choked out, and finished the end of all those rounds standing up. Got out of him. But yet, that is pure dominance for Aljamain Sterling. But when Islam does that to Volk, well, it barely affected him. He barely did anything. He didn't do any damage. And it's kind of like, well, your standards just flip-flop right there. A lot of you people, can't say one fight backpacking someone is dominance, and then on the next fight backpacking someone is, no damage. So, and I think Islam, in my eyes, won that first fight.
I thought he did too, and I actually rewatched that last week just like in anticipation for the rematch. And the first time I watched it, I thought Volk won personally, and I was like, but I was kind of biased because I wanted that underdog story, and I was like, oh, it's so impressive that he was able to stand up from the ground. But at the end of the day, like Islam definitely took 3 rounds. He controlled him more, and in at least one of those rounds, the bell saved it, because I think when you got that body triangle on him, yeah, he made it to the bell, but if that bell doesn't go for another 5 minutes, I think Islam finds a way to sink in a choke.
Yeah. You're going to eventually make a mistake.
Yeah, when somebody's on your back, like especially if they have the control that he had on Volk, where he's locked in that body triangle, it's only a matter of time. And sometimes you get saved by the bell. So I think Islam's going to take the rematch, although I would like to see Volk win. And then I think Hamzat's going to beat Kamaru Usman. I think Hamzat is the truth. I think he's going to be one of the best middleweights that we've seen in a long time. I think he could blow through Strickland. I think he could be the
love
champ
that
in
man.
that. I love Hamzat. Even though like I didn't like that he missed weight in that who was he supposed to fight at 170?
Nate Diaz.
Yeah, which I wasn't excited for that fight anyway. I thought Hamzat was going to ragdoll Nate Diaz, and I didn't want to see that. And then he goes out and ragdolls Kevin Holland. But yeah, I think he's one of, if not the best middleweights that we've seen in a long time. And I think he's going to handily beat Kamaru Usman, who's coming
Kevin
off
Holland's a black
losing
belt,
streak.
right?
Yeah.
Dude, I was wondering too, like Hamzat came out fucking like 100 like chasing the man. Like there was no like full gas pedal. It just runs across the ring, grabs him, starts slinging him around, like going ham, squeezing. And I was like wondering in my head, I'm like, does Hamzat blow his wad, or is he able to do that for like 5 rounds? You know what I mean?
Dude,
Like,
I saw some training footage of him. I don't think that there's going to be many people who are going to be able to keep up with his pace, especially if he fights strategically. Like I think one of the best fights he's had was when he fought Gilbert Burns, but I didn't think he fought that very strategically. I think he just went out there and wanted to fight the guy.
yeah,
and that's kind of what I like about him is he's like, as much as he's a great fighter, he's an incredible martial artist. He likes to fight, and you can't teach that. And that's like what makes a champion.
He even said with that fight that like he was like so dead set on just like dominating him. Like
you can tell he wanted to knock him out. He's just like, I'm gonna stay on the feet and we're gonna bang this out and see who's gonna come out and be the better fighter in this match. And I like that in a fighter. It's probably the reason I like Volk so much, is because he does the same thing. Is like, yeah, people get him on the ground, people get him deep in submissions, but he's about as game bred as they come. I mean, he's like
even Sean Strickland. There's videos of Hamzat in the gym with Sean Strickland, and Sean Strickland's telling people like Hamzat has no chill. Like he doesn't know how to just like
light spar.
Yeah, like he's talking about like they've got like new guys in the gym, like first fight pros, and Hamzat's just like wailing on him. And he's like, Hamzat, this guy's new. Go easy. And he's like, Hamzat looks at me and he's like, yeah, I'll go easy.
And buries him.
Just bury him. I'd be super hyped for that guy. Do you think he would have beat Paulo Costa had they fought?
Yeah, I think I honestly thought that was going to be a better fight than the Usman matchup, especially because Usman's coming up on short notice and he's coming up a weight class. Right. So, how does he do with a bigger, stronger Hamzat? Because that guy is big at 185. He's huge at 170.
And you know what? It might be one of those situations. I don't know how you feel, but it might be one of those situations where it's like a win-win for Hamzat, because if Usman beats you, that's not really like too much of a blemish on your record. Like it's like
you got beat by one of the best welterweights of all time.
Yeah, like one of the most dominant welterweights. It's not like you got beat by a chump. Like like everyone's kind of waiting for Usman to rebound. So it's kind of like, yeah, Usman's the truth. Like, you know what I mean? If Usman wins, Usman's like the truth. But if Hamzat wins, then Hamzat's the truth. Either way, both of them have the same potential. You know what I mean? Like,
so what do you think about if Hamzat wins? Do you think him and Izzy fight for the title, or not for the title, but to fight Strickland?
I think Izzy's done for a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he took a year off.
I think he announced. I haven't got to watch the whole video, but I didn't get to the meat of the video. But I think he announced that he's going to be out of the fight game for a while.
Oh man, that's a fight I'd like to see, is Hamzat versus Izzy. But I also think stylistically, Hamzat is a lot to handle for Izzy.
I think that as well.
Izzy can strike with the best of them, but
I think Hamzat Izzy doesn't mind putting his back on the cage, and that's like one thing I've like noticed about him is he doesn't mind with his back on the cage, and I think Hamzat will just shoot.
And he likes to wrestle from open space too. So I think Izzy would have a great shot, but I just don't see many people. I don't see anybody handily beating him.
Handily beating Hamzat.
Yeah, I like if somebody beats him, they're gonna have to go to war and they're gonna have to earn every bit of it. And he's not gonna let a fight go to points. He's not gonna take steps back. He's not gonna be the guy who's gonna get beat because he didn't engage. If you go into fight with that guy, it's gonna be a long night.
I think he's fucking like I like when I think of a champion, I'm like that. Like not like a points champion, not like a pick your matches champion. I'm thinking like as much as like I'm not like a Conor McGregor bandwagoner,
Mm-hmm.
like that's one thing. Like he always went out and fought, and it was like a finish, whether it was like him getting finished, but like he wasn't like a like
Leave it up to the judges.
yeah, like
Or I'm gonna try and stylistically, squirt one out. Pause.
yeah. Like that's he kind of like I kind of feel like I was over the Conor McGregor train, pretty early on here, but like that's one thing about him is like he went out and he was like he wasn't like a boring fighter. You know what I mean? Champion
Same
or
with
not,
John Jones.
John Jones, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
if he goes out there, he's gonna go. He wants to finish fights.
and I think that's like a champion mindset, like always looking for the kill.
Yeah, and I think the matchup that I would like to see, although they're currently in two different weight classes, is I'd like to see the Bo Nickel Hamzat fight. Bo Nickel keeps calling him out,
Oh
and
my god, that would
I
be
think that would
fun.
be a really fun stylistic matchup. You have
That
two
would scare
top
me
level
because
wrestlers.
how Bo Nickel just cracked that guy. That
He's
last
crack.
fight.
He's kills everybody, dude. He's like,
But
has he
did you
even
see
gotten to the
that
second
knockout?
round? Yeah, I've seen all of his fights, dude. I think
Dude,
he's
with
also the
that
truth.
with that knockout, you got to be scared of that dude. Like that, and that guy was supposedly like hands and could bang, dude. Like that guy like was almost basically like saying like I'm gonna knock him out before he takes me down. And Bo Nickel's just like, wow, bro, that was a loud punch.
Dude, similarly, I think he's got potential to be the best welterweight in that
He's
division, be a champion. Like, I don't see Leon Edwards having a lot of answers for him. He's got to develop a little bit. Like, don't get me, I don't know if he's ready to be the champion yet, but I don't see Colby Covington having a lot of answers for a guy like Bo Nickel. I don't see Leon Edwards having a lot of answers. Kamaru Usman would be a really cool stylistic matchup if you could get a really healthy, full camp Kamaru Usman. But other than that, in that division, I think he's gonna run through a lot of people.
for some reason I could just see Hamzat's picking up Usman. I don't know why. It's probably not that
I
easy,
think
but
if anybody is can out wrestle Kamaru, because Kamaru's a great wrestler, got great takedown defense. It would be somebody who's like got that pit bull mindset, like Hamzat, who's just like not gonna give up on takedowns, is not gonna gas on, grinding you to the ground, and is also hits really, really, really hard and has a lot of really effective striking from clinches.
I don't know what other fights are on there. Those are just the two big ones.
That, and then did you see the Big Dan in jiu-jitsu, the Big Dan?
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how he does at ADCC this year, because he just won East Coast Trials. He's been running through all of the ADCC competitions, but he's in the same weight class as Gordon Ryan. He's in the same weight class as Felipe Pena, Nicky Rod, who he lost to in that EBI event. So I'm excited to see if he's going to be able to pull anything spectacular out at ADCC this year at the big event.
Huh. He's interesting. He's like a big freakish athlete.
Yeah, and I saw his trials final match on Flow Grappling, and he smother choked the guy in like 4 minutes. I mean, he's a lot to deal with.
That's a good move for him. That's definitely a good move for him. Big, powerful
Yeah, I mean,
dude.
a
A
you
lot of
could
real
like
estate.
break people's teeth through your chest. Like he's gonna be a lot to handle. I mean, I think Gordon Ryan could handle him pretty steadily. I'd like to see the rematch with Nicky Rod, but it'll be interesting to see if he's good like that on that level of stage.
All right, last part of this, man. Who do you think could dethrone Gordon Ryan if anyone could? Or is he untouchable? That's a
So my
answer I'll let you have.
yeah, my thank you. My view on Gordon Ryan is that I don't think anybody's gonna beat him if he gets to choose the rule set. So I think if anybody has a chance to beat him, it would either be in like an EBI rule set with the overtime, where both people get back control or the arm bar, or in like an ADCC rule set where it's a 10-minute match. Halfway through, you have points and beating him by points. But I don't think anyone's going to submit him. And I don't think anybody beats him in like a 30-minute or a no time limit match. And if I had to choose who, I think Nicky Rod has a good chance. I think he's super athletic, super strong. That would be my pick. I would say probably Nicky Rod. Yeah. I haven't seen anyone else really come close.
I know I'm fucking psycho, but I keep saying Craig Jones.
We won't. I don't think we'll see them ever fight again.
I don't think so, but I think if there was like, I don't think physically Gordon Ryan is going to be beatable. I think that he's proven like how fucking far ahead he is. And I don't know what it is. It's not like, I was talking about this the other day. It's like, I was telling this professor, I'm like, what the fuck is like, he makes you wonder. Cause like they're doing shit that like if I had you in my guard and you're like trying to knee cut or knee slice, I'm going to be like, okay, he's trying to knee slice. I'm going to defend it like this. But they're doing those moves. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm like, you got to tell me these are the top of the top dogs. They've never seen a knee slice before. There's something about it that is just like unstoppable. It's just a weird concept. It's like, it's not like these guys don't know that the arm bar is coming. You know what I mean? They
know every defense for it.
Yeah, exactly. But they still fucking fall for it and get caught in it. And it's like, and that's how Gordon kind of is. He's not like pulling shit out of nowhere. He's just slowly inching his way towards it. And it's like you're kind of watching the guy like inch by inch be defeated. And
it's like people say that about Hodger Gracie. It's like when you watch a Hodger Gracie gi match, like he's not ever doing like these new jiu-jitsu meta moves. He's gonna hit you with like a collar choke from the closed guard or a cross choke from the closed guard. That's stuff that you learn in the first month of jiu-jitsu, but when it's done absolutely perfectly, it's indefensible.
Yeah. And I think that the only way to beat Gordon Ryan, this is my output, is Craig Jones, because I feel like he could live rent free in Gordon Ryan's head, whether Gordon Ryan would show it or not. I think he could do it. And I think that he could just mentally, I think that's the only way, is just to kind of mentally deflate him. Like not let Gordon's ego or Gordon's like game. Because Gordon Ryan's in control of all this shit before it's even anything.
Well, the other thing about Gordon Ryan that I think is one of the reasons he's been so unbeatable is you'd have to break him. Like they'd almost have to call the match off because his arm broke or his leg broke or his knee busted. Because like you even saw in the match with Nicky Ryan, you hear his ankle pop like 4 times, loud snap, definitely tore up some ligaments, and like it didn't even phase him. He was able to finish the match. Like I think if you're gonna beat him, it's not gonna be to tap. It's like the ref's gonna have to be like, oh my god, his arm is bent in ways it shouldn't bend. I gotta call this match.
Even Nicky Rod said that, like, I think it was on like the whatchamacallit podcast, the what's the Russian dude with the suit? Why can't I think of
Lex Friedman
podcast? I think he said like Gordon's not gonna tap. Like you're gonna have to break it or choke him. But
yeah, I think more than likely the way that you'd have to beat him is to put him to sleep.
So I think personally the only way to beat him would be mentally. Don't let his game get implemented from the start. Like Craig Jones, like, it's just like you can't touch Craig. Like Craig Jones's trolling game is so on point. And like he's just so fucking funny and doesn't care that I think that like if Gordon was to initiate like agitation and like all the bullshit talking and stuff like that, I don't think it would touch Craig Jones, which would piss Gordon Ryan off whether he showed it or not. And I think that like Craig Jones would have just so much shit to like throw out there that it would like my like scenario is just like Gordon Ryan would kind of mentally be deflated and his ego would be like a little bit in check. And I think that and Craig Jones has like enough skill that I think, and they've trained together so much that I think that like that could be the perfect scenario to get him. And as Craig Jones says, he never loses 4 times in a row. Nobody beats him 4 times, bro. He said it himself.
Hey, I would, if they have that match, I would pay to go see it. I'd want to see that one live. Like if that was in Austin, Texas, I'd probably buy a plane ticket.
You know, it'd be fucking dope. Like the minute they engage, someone turned off all the lights.
Oh, you just hear a big snap and nobody knows who did what.
Yeah, right. Like that would make shit intense. Like you got to turn on the camera or turn on the lights and see who's standing up. Like, all right, bro. Well, hey, man, I do appreciate this. I ran you past your bedtime, and I take full responsibility for it.
Look at you being so responsible. No, dude, I appreciate
now that
you.
I got what I wanted.
Yeah, now that you got my money and my time.
Yeah, exactly. And
no, dude, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I love that you're going after this and you're making this podcast. And all I got to say to you, dude, is make sure I get my fucking t-shirt. I need to wear my Talking Jit t-shirt.
Oh yeah, I got it. I just gotta you know, it'll be a thing, and it's you'll get it, you know.
Yeah, just make sure if you come to
I'll sign
Open Mat on Sunday, hey, you can sign it. If you come to Open Mat or whatever this week, make sure you got that bitch in your car. Put it in your trunk today.
Yeah, I've got the box of them in my. I was intending on seeing everybody last week, and I've handed a lot of them out, but a lot of people weren't like around, so I got them on me. So if I catch you live, I got you, bro.
Well, bro, I appreciate you. Have a wonderful rest of your week, man. Keep grinding on everything you're doing. Keep being a good father to your daughters, man. And I appreciate you having me on.
Hey, man, the pleasure's all mine.
All right, bro. I'll see you at training.
Toodles.
Peace.
I think the podcast is fucking sick. If you're listening to it and you're like, you know, I don't know if I want to listen to the next episode of this podcast, you're probably a bitch ass. You need to listen to the next episode of this podcast and keep listening to it. Because my friends down here are trying to make shit happen. And we're going to make some shit happen.